And we're back for another exciting episode of the Creators Collective. This week is going to be, well, it's going to be interesting. Let's put it that way. We had a week off last week due to my travel. Sorry for that. Due to the ice, the snow, not the ice, not the snow, the cold. We had that one too. Due to that, I had my flight changed, and so I was flying at the time we would be recording. But this week, we are just having the three of us and going to have a good time here. So, if you want to join us live, you can join us in the YouTube. Wow, my brain is off today. You can join us on the YouTube channel, Creators Collective, and we record generally Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern time.
Nope, Thursday.
Live chat.
Whatever.
Thursday. Sorry, I'm getting it mixed up with my other live. Why don't you do the...
Yeah.
So I do want to say a huge thank you to our patrons on Patreon. And if you'd like to help us out, you can join us over there, patreon.com/Creators Collective. Anything I need to say before we jump in?
Nope.
I think that's about it. So, Zach, what you got going
on? Insane amounts of stress. Yeah.
What's new?
We were just kind of talking. We were just starting to get into it before the podcast, but it's just everything is just like, I mean, it's not bad, but it's just so much, and it's all like on this subconscious level. I'm staying focused, I'm doing my stuff, but like in the background, I'm just totally losing my mind because. So I have I'm going to Sacramento tomorrow morning to do some forging with John Williams for 3 days. Then I come back, have to finish the edit and stuff on the Workbench Con talk that Paul and I are giving, finalize that up, and finish another collab that I'm supposed to make another part for Paul Jackman for another build, and I have orders piling up. Let's see what else. Oh, moving, yeah. So just scouring every day and like having I never knew how stressful like house buying was. And this is our first
doing
one.
It wrong, man.
No, it is. I mean, it is stressful. Like it's like putting in offers on houses and then having them fall through, or inspection and appraisals and comps and just this whole world of stuff that I don't know anything about. But it's funny. Like, I mean, Tracy and I, the best comparison is it's like being broken up with when a house doesn't work out. Like, cause you imagine, like, you can't help it when you see a place that you like and you're like, okay, I can do that. I can picture my shop in there and we can do the flooring in here. And you start looking up like how much is it going to cost to do concrete in here and like all this stuff. And then like it falls through and it's like, it feels like being broken up with. It's like, it's been so long since I've been broken up with. It's, so yeah, so that, and then I think there's like 4 or 5 trips coming up. So yeah, Sacramento, Workbench Con, Spring Make, Makers Central, and then my wife is Tracy's flying out to Portland, Oregon for some job interviews, both there and Eugene. So, I mean, she's super employable. So we're guessing that she's probably going to get like 2 or 3 job offers. We're going to take all of them to the bank, see what we can get approved for on loan, and then hopefully find a house within the time frame where she can start working. Like it's tricky because when you're moving across country, all these things are codependent.
Yep.
And we don't have $70,000 in savings for a 20% down payment. So to get approved for a mortgage and stuff, you need to have an offer letter, and it's hard to get a job when you live across the country, and it's hard to get a house when you don't have a job. So it's kind of
the 2 times we've done that, we ended up having to one or the other has to go out early and find some place to live for a month or so on until we can then move the rest out.
Yeah, we may have to do that. I don't know. It's just that, and on top of trying to run a business and plan all this travel at the same time, it's just like I'm just in a constant state, no matter how focused and like how much JJKL or whatever I play on the radio, I'm still deep down, I'm just boiling like with stress. So
start turning stuff at the end of the day,
Do like,
what? You should start turning stuff.
Yeah, I did. So there was the world's most depressing woodworking show. We claimed that title here in Tampa, the woodworking shows. I don't know if you guys. I think I posted a quick thing on my story of it when I was there. It's like, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but like it feels like a assisted living facility, the woodworking show. Like like objectively the most depressing thing you'll ever see. I mean, it's so bad. It's everybody's like probably within months of taking their last breath, and like nobody can walk. They're all on like mobility scooters or walkers, and it's just it's very sad. It's a very depressing place. So, but anyway, the high note, the reason I started off on this tangent was I picked up a whole bunch of turning blanks because I thought, you know what? This does sound nice. So I haven't gotten around to doing it yet, but
turning, the great stress reliever.
I hope so, but it's also a great mess maker. So my lathe is in the furthest corner from my shop. So
I literally have a 35-gallon trash can full of turnings mess next to me right now. Like this.
Did you say? Yeah. Okay.
Turning shavings.
It's
nice.
Yeah. It's just. Now I'm messy.
I really want to forge a turning tool. I ordered a swage block, so I should be able to like hammer in the bevel for like a bowl gouge or like that radius.
Bowl gouges need to be machined, so they're like a full tang. But like a spindle gouge, a spindle gouge can be forged.
Why couldn't I forge a bowl gouge?
Because it's dangerous, unless you kept it like a thick rod that you mortise into the handle.
I mean, I can do. I don't want to sound overconfident, but I can do whatever. I can keep it as thick as I want.
Well, yeah. So
my question is, could I use would 1075 like carbon steel work for something like that? I'm sure like there's some S7 to Super Titan CRV 372 or whatever that everybody uses, but I'm sure like I would think that just a good like carbon steel would be adequate. Probably need a little bit more sharpening a little bit more frequently, but
yeah, I mean the old turning tools are all carbon steel. The newer ones are high speed steel. But
what did they use? Like 1095 or something?
I have no idea.
Yeah, that's what I use for mine, but I paddle sharpen mine. So
1095.
High speed carbon steel, not high speed.
Oh, okay. Did I cover everything? Oh, I got a new toolbox yesterday. And I'm like on a toolbox buying frenzy because it just like makes life it just makes my shop so much
easier
better.
To ship your tools once they're actually in a box.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's how I justified it.
It's on wheels, yeah.
So I bought a big one like probably 5 months ago, and it really tidied things up. And I noticed that even with that being full, every flat surface in my shop constantly has a pile of stuff on it. So I thought, well, I can reshuffle things, get a new box, and that should help tidy things up. And that's what I did yesterday. And it's weird by adding more, taking up more floor space. I feel like I added more floor space. I don't know how that works, but it feels way cleaner and tidier in there. So I'm happy about that. But then when I was moving the sander, I kicked my garbage can was in the way. I kicked it over. It domino affected like my old wood forge, tipped it over, fell right on the back of my truck that I just did all the body work, painted everything. It's like one of the few panels on my truck that is absolutely perfect, and it dented it and ripped all the paint off of it. So now I have another 2 days worth of work. So it's kind of been a crazy week. I'm I don't know. I think it might be nice to, I mean, although I'm stressed out about like waking up at, 4:00 tomorrow and sitting on an airplane all day, it might be good to just get away and try and get my mind off of everything. But if anybody's in the Sacramento area, I think we're in like Elk Grove or something like that, like the outskirts, but hit me up. Maybe we can drink my stress away together or something.
Cool. What you got, Will? What's on your plate?
Yesterday I got the big ass walnut table glued together. And that was
is it
stressful,
ash or
but
walnut?
Walnut. Sorry, I'm using my adult words on the podcast this morning. No, that was stressful because these things are heavy. They're after flattening, it ended up just a little over 2.5. It's 45 inches at its widest point, and it's 7 feet long. So that was stressful, just like the logistics of moving things around and getting clamps under it, and and it's so beefy, like that there's no spring, like, so it doesn't matter how much clamping pressure you put on it. Like it was solid enough that it wasn't gonna like close up the gap, so the joint needed to be like absolutely perfect. And it ended up. No, actually, I jointed a board, an 8-foot long board, so it was perfectly straight, and then clamped that to the edge of the slab, and then used my circular saw, using that jointed board as a guide, and it actually worked. I really had like not high hopes for using a circular saw to joint a piece of wood, but it worked. So I did that.
Did you run
that's
one
still
pass and plane off the saw marks?
It actually was super clean. I had a brand new blade on.
Ooh, nice.
On the circular saw, and but it did, because it was so thick, that the blade, like I had just enough depth on the circular saw.
Yeah.
On one of them, it left like a 30-second of like a little lip that I had to go back, and I did actually plane that off, because that was interfering. And then I released the video knife case, and that's doing
sexy, man.
Thank you very much. That was a fun little build. That was like, I've got a lot of. It was a simple case.
I
tried to pay attention. Yeah, but I tried to pay attention to like a lot of small details and book matched back panel, and almost like a book matching, like the strips that hold the pegs. Like I kept them in sequence, so as I cut them, like match, they're not together, they're apart. So they kind of mirror each other in the case, and used cope and stick bits in the router. But that was just a really nice, like, I've got a lot of stress going on in my life that I don't want to talk about on the podcast, but a nice, like, everything just went well. It went swimmingly. So, but yeah, that's what I got going on. Do I have anything else in the what else do I?
Wall art?
Wall art. And then so yesterday, after I got the table and clamps, I took like the rest of the day, because my workbench was pretty much full and I couldn't move it because it was, still, the glue was still drying. I had this idea kicking around in my head. It's sort of like a river. Instead of using a slab, ripping it down the middle and putting the two pieces opposing each other, I took one half of one slab, and then I resawed it down the middle, and I almost like book matched them, but then like on opposite ends, so they're like a mirror image opposite each other. And then I did the joinery on that, so it's like actually like a tongue and groove sort of joinery. So it's and I rabbited out the back mirrored glass panel, and it's just a cool little piece of wall art, little personal project. I'm probably gonna put it up on Instagram to sell when I'm done. But yeah, I think that's all I got going on. How about you, James?
Well, excuse me. I just got back from a long trip, so I spent 3 days down in Georgia, Madison, Georgia, at a Midwest Tool Collectors Association meet. It is the Peach Meet, which is the biggest tool sale in the South, hand tool sale. And I bought a lot of stuff. But unfortunately, I couldn't ship it all back. I couldn't take it back with me because TSA is not happy about you bringing a 3-inch wide slick on the plane with you. So I found it actually cheaper to mail it back to myself than it was to check it in the plane. So I had fun with there. But if you want to see that, I actually have a video on my channel where I go through and show all the tools for sale outside as well as the tools for sale inside. And so if you're looking for buying hand tools that are hard to find at a decent price, Midwest Tool Collectors and other clubs like that that sell around the nation and around the world are the place to buy. I probably purchased 60 to 70% of all my tools at Midwest Tool Collectors meets. What else did I have going on? And then we went on a small vacation, and so I've been gone for like 8 days straight, and I just got back yesterday. So it's been kind of fun. Then I put out a video on a Roubo book stand, and I think I explained things in the video because I had a lot of people then getting very mad at me about where it came from. But then every person who got mad at me gave me a different location that it came from. Because I mean, do you guys know what I'm talking about with the Roubo book stand? It's one piece, and the two halves of it hinge past each other, and so you're actually cutting a hinge out of a board, and you're cutting the board into two pieces, but the two pieces are connected together and hinge past each other. It's one of those skill building exercises with a chisel and resawing and a bunch of other things that it's fascinating to do. The first time you pop it apart, it's one of those magical moments in woodworking. But it's an old design, and I said in the video it was popularized by Andre Roubo back in the 1600s, and then it was repopularized again by Roy Underhill in the Woodwright shop. And a lot of people then said, well,
repopularized the 1600s.
Yes. No, a lot of people then got mad at me saying, well, Andre Roubo didn't copy it. It didn't come up with it. It's an older. I was like, yes, well, it's a wooden design that's over 3,000 years old. So it's there isn't much new in woodworking. But it's one of those. It is a project that was fairly common for what's I'm looking for, assistants, apprentice. There's the word.
Apprentices. Yeah.
It was common for them to learn on because it required a lot of precise chisel work, a lot of precise resawing, and to do it right, it takes a decent amount of skill. But the beginner can still do it and end up with a functional piece. So it was good for someone to play with. But it was a great video. It had a lot of good response from it.
Oh, I totally forgot. I put out a video the other day too. It has 10 views. Don't watch it.
Yeah, that stand was seriously sweet.
Thanks. It's been a amazing addition to the shop and my workflow, and it enables me to do things that I couldn't do without it, which is kind of the idea of a tool in general. Yeah.
So can you talk for a minute about why someone would want one of those as opposed to a bench-mounted vise?
Yeah. So the video is a post vise, or like a blacksmith vise, lag vise. They have all sorts of different names. And instead of like your typical machinist vise, when you think of a vise, I think most people probably think of the ones that you mount to a bench or a table and has a little swiveling head. Those things are great, and there's definitely some advantages to like the machinist or the bench vices. They have a lot of gripping power since it doesn't really have a fulcrum. The jaws are parallel. They move in a parallel fashion, and it's like tightening a screw. They have a ton of clamping power. They're really good, but they're typically not meant to be struck on hard. They're not meant to be a forging vise. There are definitely some like super heavy duty ones that have been made in the past that suffice for that. But typically, the post vise, or the one that I have, it has, instead of being mounted to a bench or a table, it has an integral part of the vise. It's a post that goes into, the ground or the plate or the base, whatever you build for it. And it has a big jaw that, instead of sliding out parallel, it kind of pivots, about 2 feet down from the jaws. It'll open up really wide. It still has a lot of clamping power. The jaws are usually smooth. So, typically you're going to clamp hot metal in it, and you don't want to leave impressions on it, and then you can, forge the metal as it's clamped in the jaw. So there's a lot of operations and stuff that they're really useful to do. So, and with that post, if you're swinging really hard on the jaw of it, all that energy gets transmitted directly down into the floor instead of, acting as like a lever on the I don't know what you'd call it, the screw section of like a machinist vise. So it's just a heavy duty vise that's meant to be beat on, essentially.
Yeah. I loved you showing the reheating of the bottom to flatten it out.
Yeah, I can't believe that worked. That was crazy.
I've done it in the past where I've put a bead of weld on the other side of the plate to flatten it out, but I've never thought of just heating it.
Yeah, I mean you're pretty much replicating. So when you heat metal, it shrinks, and that's why you get like cupping or warpage. And I even went with 5/8. It's so hard to say this. 5/8 inch thick. That's really hard to say. Plate, and thinking that it wouldn't warp because it was thick enough, but it did. And I even spaced out my welds and tried not to weld with a lot of heat, and it's still cupped. But yeah, flipping it over with my oxyacetylene torch, I traced my entire weld pattern as best as I could, exactly the opposite on the back side, the opposite side of the weld. And so what happens is when you heat up metal, it expands, and then when it contracts, so when it expands, it expands. Imagine you have a flat sheet of steel, and if we'll say just with a torch or something, if you heat up the top side, what happens is it expands and then it contracts, but it contracts in 3 dimensions instead of 2. So you're taking something that was machined flat. When you expand it, it actually expands. When you heat it up, it expands in 3 dimensions. Instead of just going outward, it actually expands up. And then when it contracts in and up. So it actually pulls the outer area up and cups it into the weld. So by flipping it over and kind of trying to create a similar heat pattern on the backside, the idea is that you do the exact opposite and kind of pull it back. And it worked. I mean, you can see in the video, it's definitely very wobbly. And then I did that on the back, and it sits very, very flat. So yeah, I was cool. Pretty surprised that worked. My buddy, my kind of mentor, Cliff Dufton, told me about that, and yeah,
sweet. Hey, Will, we got a question for you in the live chat. Alec McMahon. I can butcher anyone's name. I've got a question for you, Will. Since he hasn't finished his Roubo bench yet and is working off the torsion box assembly table, do you find your hand tool use is actually limited?
So that's a good question. Yes and no. First of all, my top isn't a torsion box. It's just a laminated plywood thick top. So there's no actual torsion box in the middle. It's just stacked plywood with a hardboard top on it. When I'm working, I position myself over essentially one of the legs of the bench, so I get good energy transfer all the way down into the concrete slab. That being said, it is still empty, I want to say. And I'm actually doing this podcast. My laptop is sitting on my Roubo top right now. So I've got that sitting on sawhorses when I finally find time to, like, over a year since I started this thing, and then just got kind of swamped with commissions and could never get back to the bench to actually, like, take up time in the shop to finish the thing. But I've got it sitting on sawhorses. It is a workbench, and I can come over here and work on it. And I get that 4-inch thick, good, dense hardwood handwork. So
I was watching you in the video, and you were planing something in the vise, and as you get to the far side of the board, it's no longer supported, and the board would bend down. I was thinking, I wish I had some dogs. That would make it nice.
Yeah. So I'm with you on that. I'm with you, man. Yeah, so I mean, I make do. I'm a big supporter of don't make excuses, make work. So, you know, a lot of people could say like, oh, I can't do that because I don't have blah, but I've seen some people do some pretty crazy stuff with very limited tools. But yeah, good question, Alec.
Hey, we also got another question from Tomy Hovington. Hey, Will, whatever happened to your forging log plate?
I'm very popular today. So I put the plate on the log, and then as soon as I did that, my neighbor had just dug up a piece of railroad track and said, "Hey, like, well, do you want this thing?" And so that's actually sitting on top of the plate, on top of the log right now, and I've only used it to get metal hot and pound it out just to see if it would work. I made like a butter knife thing because I didn't put a bevel or anything on it yet, but I just wanted to see if I could move metal with it, and yeah, it works.
Cool. Well, we are not judging any creators collective this time because last time we came up with it, well, we ran out. So we're going to be setting up the next one, which will be for 2 weeks from today, and that will be negative space. Will, why don't you tell us what that is?
Yeah, so using negative space, you're basically using the empty space in an image, the thing that isn't the subject, to actually make that the subject. So you see a lot in logo design and graphic design, but there's some really cool examples of using it in photography. So yeah, so the challenge this week or this fortnight is to use negative space in your photography, in your workshop or your work area, your maker space.
Just due to the size of my shop, it's negative space when I'm in it.
Cool. So if you want to join in, take a picture, put it on Instagram with the hashtag Creators Photo Challenge, and you will win something from one of the three of us if you are chosen. And we do also we each pick two, and so there's usually several people we give shout outs to. So if you want to have your name mentioned on here, go ahead and throw on a picture on Instagram with hashtag Creators Photo Challenge, and we will judge you in 2 weeks. Now we have a joke from the live chat, Jim Dockrell. He said, dollars are pretty rare around me. In fact, we call them Dollar Williams here because we're not familiar enough to call them Bill.
Nice. That was terrible.
That was really bad.
Then we've had another one from Tony C. This was sent in a while ago. He had a yard with nothing but flat sawn oak. When I called to inquire getting some quarter sawn oak, they quickly responded, yeah, we've got lots of quarter sawn oak. It's the widths stink, but the thicknesses are phenomenal.
That's a bad wood joke, and you need to understand what quarter sawn oak is to get the joke.
Yeah, actually, be having a video on that later today. Actually, that'll be coming out. I'll be talking about quarter sawn, rift sawn. Actually, be talking about wood movement. So, what is wood movement? Why do birds explode?
Did you ever see the video I did on explaining how to buy hardwood lumber? Yeah. That one was really, really popular. So
that was a good one. A lot of good information. That I've had a whole bunch of questions lately, especially with the Samurai Carpenter's video about what is wood movement, because people think that's like this mysterious thing that wood just randomly moves. Well, it doesn't randomly move. It has a pattern to it.
Does it seem like so many things just get concepts get recirculated? Like there's like fad topics in woodworking.
Yep.
Like it just goes and it's like this big circular thing where like this month everybody's concerned about wood movement again, and like come springtime it's usually about how pocket holes will are the worst thing in the world, and then like wintertime it's like hone in on your dovetails, and then like it seems like there's like these circular topics, and it's people are putting out like the same videos that they put out at the same time last year that cover the same topics. And
I just did a video on pocket holes. a live video, and normally a live video for me, if it's good, there's like 700 to 800 people who join live.
Jeez.
And you know, my
impressive.
best yet was 1,200 people, and I did the live video on pocket holes, and I had over 3,000 people live.
Wow.
It's like people want to know about pocket holes. Everybody loves to hate to love them.
Wow. So I gotta say, Zach, I do think, you know, yeah, but I mean, it makes in the springtime as, you know, AC, you know, as heat can turn to AC, your HVAC system, you know, different temperatures, moisture content in the air, you know, like as things start to kind of explode, no, as things start to move, at a table.
Did you hear about there's a big pocket hole explosion in Russia last week?
Oh, really?
Yeah, just outside Chernobyl.
Yeah, it was dangerous. Not to be taken lightly.
No, so I actually had to revisit a table that I delivered to a client where the breadboards did their job to keep the tabletop flat, but the main part of the table, not that breadboard ends, but just the main part of the table had shrunk a little bit. The you know, relative humidity in her home versus my shop. And so it left the breadboard ends proud a little bit, and they were like catching people's jackets and stuff. So I've got to go revisit that and you know, flatten that out. Wood movement is very real.
Just trim off about 3 inches off the bottom of everybody's jackets. It should be fine.
I love that.
Nice. Well, let's get into what's inspiring us. What are we watching, reading? Will, what you got?
Yes, I think I've mentioned this one before, but I am rereading Mike Pekovich's The Why and How of Woodworking. It's just a really beautiful book. It's I mean, Pekovich a lot on the show, but he really curates everything really well. His Instagram feed, his books are just absolutely gorgeous, and he talks about kind of the mindset of being in the work, some good tips on kind of getting your mind off of things like cleaning up the shop, having a clean workspace, and then remembering why you're in the shop. So yeah, that's what I'm reading, the Why and How of Woodworking.
Good book. Cool. Well, I have to give a shout out to Yuri Tuchman. Yes. Phenomenal accent. And I'm working on doing a collab with him here soon. But he did a video recently making an astrolabe. But he does a lot of engraving, a lot of brass work, a lot of benchtop steel work, and very little, if any, hand tool, if any, power tools. He actually set up a scroll saw to scroll saw his brass. So it's kind of cool, and I want to experiment with them. But phenomenal videos, and anytime he pops one up, I watch it almost instantly. It's the top of my list, so definitely one worth taking a look at. What about you, Zach? What book are you reading?
You know, Trulia has been what I've been, or Zillow, I think, is actually what I've been spending the most time on lately. It's it's nerve-wracking. It's like it's weird, but that and you know, just thumbing through, taking a break from the informative reading and thumbing through another Stephen King short stories books. For some reason, hearing about, you know, people getting eaten by devil-possessed monsters seems to get my mind off of, you know, other things. So yeah, it's nice, cool. Nice little way to break things up.
Well, do you have a product of the week or something you like using?
You know, I'm gonna go with Toolbox. Like, just organize your shop, tidy it up, buy a toolbox, put stuff in it.
Good wisdom.
Nope.
I don't like toolboxes. I prefer tool wall.
Buy a big one. Buy 2 big ones. Buy as many toolboxes as you can fit on the perimeter of your shop and stuff them full of stuff. It's exciting.
Fun. Now, have you ever heard oh, come on, what's his name? Mythbuster.
Adam Savage.
Adam Savage's view on drawers.
He hates them, probably.
Yeah, drawers are where tools go to die.
Yeah, not for me.
Especially the backs of drawers.
So I was a mechanic years and years ago. I worked for Ford, and it's funny how things have changed. 'Cause this was like probably, I'm guessing like 2003, 2004 when I was doing this. And pretty much the only toolboxes that were reasonable, like you had to buy like a Mac toolbox or like a Snap-on. I had like a Mac toolbox and it was like $3,000. And they still are. Like all the Mac and Snap-on boxes are just absurdly expensive. And it was like at the time it was like a rite of passage. Like other mechanics laugh at you if you didn't have like, you know, if you weren't making $300 payments on a toolbox at the time. Granted, they were built really nice. I mean, I could pull out the bottom drawer and stand in it, which looks cool, but it's when are you ever going to need to do that? And you can't even put that much weight in a drawer. But yeah, so, you know, I sold that a while ago and I'm like, God, I can't believe I just get mine. This sounds like a pitch. It's not. Like I just happen to buy mine from Home Depot, but I would just as happily buy it from Lowe's unless one of them wants to pay me to say I like one better. I don't really care. But you know, like I bought a really nice one for $600, and then the one I bought yesterday was $400, and it has drawers and they open and close, and you can put stuff in them, and I don't have to make payments on it. So like it's weird, and it's funny. You still see like you get on your Craigslist and look up like Snap-on and Mac toolboxes, and people they're trying to sell them for like a used one for like $2,000-$3,000, and it's like you can just drive to Home Depot and buy one that's you know it's the functionality wise, it's going to serve the exact same purpose unless all your tools are made out of like lead. So it's kind of weird.
And now Lowe's is pushing Craftsman pretty hard.
Yeah, you know, I sent an email to Craftsman a while ago, and yeah, it didn't go over well. It's like, hey, like you know, like you guys are really hitting the woodworking market hard, and it's like, hey, I you know, do a ton of fabrication work. I'm restoring an old truck. I use everything you make, I will use in my videos. And they're like, oh, cool. Well, we'll let you know if we're interested. I'm like, do you want my email or anything? Like, oh yeah, you should probably. I'm like, I didn't even like. You don't care. I don't need you, Craftsman.
Cool. Well, Will, what's your product of the week?
My product of the week is CBN wheels. I just upgraded my grinder to CBN wheels, and I got them from Woodturner's Wonders. And I actually called and talked to the proprietor because I wanted to get his take on which wheels he thinks I should have on my grinder. And so I ended up with the 180 grit 4-in-1 and the 50 grit Mega Square CBN wheels, and they are Mega Square, and they're fantastic. I love them. Like if you've never grinded on a CBN wheel, it's like it makes me giggle.
Are those the ones where it's like metal but impregnated with stuff?
Exactly. I can't remember what CBN stands for, but yeah, that's exactly what they are. But you know, what grinding sounds like on the white wheels, you know, and it's messy, hot, and it's messy, and then you grind on the CBN wheel, and it just sounds like delightful.
Like glass.
And it's like, yeah, I can't make the noise, but yeah, it's beautiful. It's like
we want to hear you try and make the noise.
So yeah, how about you, James? Do you have a favorite product?
I have to go with the branding iron that I made like 3 years ago. And there's just something fun about being able to brand your own work, especially with making the strops. Because I'm in the process of making over 200 strops to ship out right now. Speaking of which, if you want a strop, I'm making a few extra. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait several more months until I make another batch. But I'm branding each of them on both sides, so I'm branding like 400 times. It gets to be a bit production line, but it's a lot of fun still. I mean, every time there's the sense, the feel of it, it just feels good in your hand. And I'm wanting to make another one here soon and make a larger one, something like a 2-inch diameter. So we will see. They're a lot of fun though. Cool. I I think that about does it. Am I missing anything for this week? Cool. So if you want to join us live, you can do that YouTube Creators Collective on our YouTube channel. We record Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern time, and we'd love to have you there. We do pull most of our questions off of the live chat. So if you would like to find out more about that, you can do that on YouTube /Creators Collective, as well as you can go to patreon.com and help us there, patreon.com/Creators Collective. I like how I use both forward and backward. Okay, no one even noticed.
I wasn't going to correct you today. I was going to let it go.
Cool. I think that'll do it. So until next time, have a wonderful day.
See you later.
Adios.